And welcome back to Bengal Bites, real, raw, unfiltered talk about the Cincinnati Bengals and the NFL. I'm your host, Derek. As a reminder, I am not sponsored by anyone or anything. I am not affiliated with the Cincinnati Bengals team. I'm just a regular fan and a former football player with a microphone and a computer and the internet, and I want to talk to you about my favorite team and my favorite sport. If you're new to this show, check out episode 0, where I went into more detail about who I am, what this podcast is all about, why I'm making this show. But one of the best examples of really why I'm making this show I saw on Twitter came from Bengal Jim's feed, but comedian Gary Owen was telling a story on TikTok about how he went to roast the Bengals team, and he wanted to tell them and express to the players how much they mean to the community and how much they may not even realize it. So he told a great story. I'm going to link it in the show description. I want everybody to go check it out if you have a minute. He tells it. It's an amazing story. I don't want to tell it because I won't do it justice. It's his own personal story. But basically, he was talking about how his brother had dealt with addiction, drug addiction throughout his life and had a number of overdoses. And whenever he would try to talk to him, just trying to relate to his brother, find out how he was doing, he was always felt like his brother wasn't really there. It was more of that drug addict that he was talking to. But he found that the one thing that they were able to connect on, and a moment when he felt like he really had his real, true brother back, lucidly speaking with him, was when they were talking about the Bengals and talking about football. So that is the power of football and being a fan, is even when there's all kinds of crazy things, negative things that may be going on in your life, you can take that minute or a few minutes of the day and just talk about something that doesn't really matter, which is football. And sometimes that's fun, just to take your mind off of things and talk about something like the Bengals. Last episode, we did a complete breakdown of preseason game 2 at the Atlanta Falcons, where we saw the defensive starters play for one series, but it eventually ended up in a 13-13 tie. So not too much action in that game. In this episode, episode 4, we're going to recap the third and final preseason game at the Washington Commanders. We're just going to hit the highlights of this game because none of the starters played in this one. These are mostly second, third, sometimes fourth string guys who are never going to play football at all for the rest of their lives. So this was really not the most interesting game to watch. So we don't need to go and pick the bones out of this one too much. I don't want to submit you or myself to watching this game too many times. This is not going to be the typical game week review that we're going to do during the regular season, and hopefully once the team makes it to the playoffs, we'll dig deep into those games. But for this game, since most of these guys aren't going to be on the roster, I didn't think it was worth it. After we recap the game, we're going to go through what I consider my locks to make the roster currently. I'm not going to hit the 53-man roster predictions because I think that's kind of a waste of time. There's all kinds of players that are going to hit the waiver wire. They're going to be released by other teams that inevitably will be better than some of the players that are currently on the roster. So I think it's kind of a waste of time and effort to sit there and try to calculate, which guys on the current roster are going to make the team, because there's so many players on all 31 other rosters that I'm not accounting for that could also make the team too. So I'm going to go with my gut instinct about who I think has done enough in camp to solidify a roster spot so far. It's not going to be 53, but it's going to be close to 50. Finally, we're going to conclude with a bit about Joe Mixon versus the local media and some of the thoughts I have about that situation. So without further ado, let's get into preseason game 3 recap. The first thing to know before the game is it was hot. It was like 85 degrees plus at least 75% humidity. So it was muggy, it was hot, everyone was sweating before the game even started. So you knew that you're probably going to see some low energy, lethargic play. There's going to be guys conserving energy, as you would, just in that kind of a condition. Your mind just naturally is trying to conserve energy, go slow. You can't turn it up to 11 on every single play, or you're only going to last about 3 plays. And when you're playing in that kind of a condition, your pads and your helmet really bottle in the heat and trap the heat close to your body. So it's really easy to get overheated. I saw some of my teammates in high school had to get stretchered off and taken to an ambulance and hooked up to IVs because you get dehydrated, you get overheated, you need ice packs and everything. So especially if you're wearing a lot of extra clothing, extra arm pads like Jackson Carman has on his forearms. We talked about that. Also, going into this is the last chance for some of these guys who are third and fourth string to show what they can do, put something on tape that would make either the Bengals or one of the 31 other teams take a chance to sign them to their roster. As I mentioned, no starters played in this except for the special teams like kickers and punters, but it was all backups all the way, offense and defense. Pretty much third and fourth string guys who are never going to play, and these are probably guys who are going to be selling insurance or teaching physical education at the local high school in a couple months, with all due respect to those guys. But this might be the last time they put a helmet and pads on in their life. So it's a young man's game, as they say. You can't be 35 years old going out there and playing football. If you don't make it when you're in your early 20s, you're not going to make it. One of the things from watching specifically the Bengals broadcast, because when you go back and watch it on NFL Plus, they give you the home team, which was the Commanders broadcast. So I was able to watch the Bengals broadcast live over the air. And for whatever reason, the audio of the mix inside the stadium was way too high, or the announcers were way too low. But either way, it was just, the balance was way off, so that I could barely hear Anthony Munoz and whatever the guy's name is, Mike something or other. I could barely hear them talking. I could hear the music in the crowd and the players on the field, like yelling out the defensive calls, "You go over there." I could make out the players on the field better than I can hear the announcers. So that was kind of weird. But Bengals are not really great at audio in general. More on that later. In general, this was another sloppy game. There was a lot of penalties. A lot of big plays got called back by penalties for the Bengals, which was unfortunate. But it seemed like the referees were maybe leaving their flags in their pockets, or maybe the league told them not to call as many penalties, because it seems like there was a lot of penalties going uncalled also, even more so than previous weeks. So maybe they were just like, look, we got to get these games over with. It's hot. Let's just keep it rolling. Stop calling 20 penalties a game and move on with their lives. I want to do something a little bit different right now. So I'm not going to break down the whole game, but I'm going to play back some of my live reactions that I had during the game. So I'm going to have to warn you, some of the language may not be appropriate for younger audiences. This is the real, raw, unfiltered talk I'm talking about, that I just have to let it out during the game. You just have to let it go, you can't hold it back. So these are some of my thoughts during the first half. I basically, just to give you some more background, these are not all plays in a row. These are just some of my plays that I recorded from the first half. Oh shit, right after they said Jackson Carman and Charlie Jones player to watch, that was right after Jackson Carman didn't block anybody on that run play. And how you know he didn't block anybody? Because he was not engaged. He was just standing around, looking around in the backfield while everybody else was tackling his guy. Then, on this next pass play, he got beat around the corner. Oh, and then Trey Hill just gave up a face mask. But yeah, he gave up a big-ass hit on Jake Browning. That's not what you want to see. And Trey Hill, so many penalties. How do you get a face mask? I don't think Trey Hill can be on this team. Trey Hill. Jackson Carman is now left tackle. Deontay Smith is right tackle. So they had swapped from first quarter to second quarter. They got Jackson Carman left, Jackson Kirkland on the left guard, Sharping center, Trey Hill right guard, Deontay Smith. Then we got a screen pass. It doesn't work. Dude, Zach Taylor and the screen passes are the worst. 3rd and 18, screen pass. Guess what? Now it's 4th and 20. And Charlie Jones Getting negative yards on the punt return? What the fuck was that? Oh my God, Charlie Jones is not giving us anything on the punt return game. Nothing in the receiving game. Oh no. Oh no. Dominique Davis had Jacoby Brissett for the sack, but Jacoby Brissett stepped up in the pocket, got around Dominique's nose tackle ass. They're going into, I guess, the bare front. And he got away from Tufele. Miles Murphy, what is he dropping back for? Wide open, number 86. Oh, Jordan Battle dips his head, gets okie doked for the touchdown. Tinsley, 86 for the Commanders. Anthony Munoz is pronouncing these guys 18 different ways every single play. He says Asi Asi or Asi Asi, and he says Yosevich and then Yosivash after the commercial break, so somebody told him how to pronounce it. I mean, I guess I'm glad the preseason is only 3 games long, and Anthony Munoz is on the Hall of Fame, so who am I to correct him? But I can't wait until the regular season games, and I don't have to watch Trevor Siemian. Chase Brown looks pretty good, though. He's making some guys miss, running hard, running guys over. I like that. I don't know why these referees aren't calling this. This is obvious holding on the jersey from Yosevash. Holding on the right shoulder, and he dropped it. That's right in his hands. I don't know why he didn't catch it. Oh, see? Second quarter, Jackson Carman took them arm pads off. His arms were getting too sweaty and hot. See? That's what happens. It's fucking 85 degrees out there, and you got those stupid motherfucking arm pads on. Yeah, I just got to take those shits off now. All right. Shooter McPherson going for the 58-yard field goal. No big deal. Air is hot. It's not even as long. He had a 59-yarder before this. This is short. Oh, he hooked it? Good. Got it. Okay, here we go. Charlie Jones. Second time. Punt return. Okay, he's going to get it from about the 6. And, oh, he got crushed. He got like a 9-yard return, though. I don't know. Not really much. Woo! Charlie Jones got welcome to the NFL. He got lit up and planted into the ground, but he caught it. He hung on. Good job, Charlie Jones. Okay, these ads are seriously getting excessive. They ran 2 plays and went to a commercial break. They had 2-minute warning, came back, ran 2 passes, and then went straight back to a commercial break. What the fuck? Dude, how does Allen George get beat on this touchdown? What the H? Are you kidding me? They had man-to-man coverage or something. Maybe it was his own. This guy is hurt. But 86 just scored his second touchdown. Jeff Gunter was coming in off the defensive right edge. Beats the left tackle. Doesn't get there in time. Good pass from Jake Fromm. Allen George is completely beat. What is this? Dude, Jordan Battle is late on every play coming over. He's just slow. Let me know what you think about that. If it was good, if it was not good, if I sound like a maniac or... It's weird. I sound like I'm drunk. I swear I did not have a drink at all. I was completely sober, but just you feel drunk when you're I feel drunk when I'm watching the... I feel like I'm wasted and just losing my mind. So that's what you get. Anyway, now that I'm not in a state of psychosis watching the game, here are some of my supposedly sane thoughts about the game. Tanner Hudson, I was glad to see come back from his concussion where he jumped over 2 guys and concussed himself in the first game. So he had a few great catches in this game. He caught 4 of 7 targets, and he had one where the ball went through the defender's hands, got tipped up into the air, and Tanner Hudson made an amazing catch where he was able to grab it on the deflection. He didn't have a lot of time. It was like a split second through the guy's hands into his hands. Hand-eye coordination was amazing for Tanner Hudson on that one. The Bengals, they scored 2 touchdown passes in this game. So on the one hand, that's better than they had in the games before. You feel good about that. But on the other hand, both of these were busted coverages completely by the Commanders. The first one in the first quarter from Browning to Yosivash in the back of the end zone. The Commanders had 3 guys covering the 2 receivers. They had Trent Taylor in the slot, Yosivash on the left outside receiver. And like 3 guys covered Trent Taylor, and they just let Josivas go completely free in the back of the end zone. Nobody covered him at all. Jake Browning almost threw it like 10 feet in the air. Josivas had to show off his leaping ability to go up and get it. Browning said that he was like, oh, he was so open, I figured that I wasn't seeing somebody, so I threw it up high, which is like, okay, whatever you got to do, it was a touchdown, cool. But like I said, you feel kind of like it was a cheap touchdown because nobody was even guarding him, so it was almost too easy. Even more so on the fourth quarter touchdown that Reed Sinnett threw to Shedrick Jackson, number 12, there was some kind of a communication breakdown on the Commanders' defensive backs where one guy thought it was man-to-man, the other guy thought it was zone coverage. The guy guarding the slot, Shedrick Jackson, Shedrick went on a deep fade from the slot, kind of like what Trent Irwin did against the Falcons, where it looked like a touchdown from Trevor Siemian, but it was defensive pass interference, obviously. Similar type of concept where you're running the fade from the slot. The nickel corner or the slot cornerback didn't go with Shedrick up the sideline, and then the cornerback stayed on his man short. So basically, there was no safety, there was no corner, nobody was playing deep, and Shedrick was standing in the end zone wide open. So any quarterback in the NFL, including Reed Sinnett, should be able to hit that pass 100 times out of 100, as long as you don't drop it like we saw in some of these other preseason games. You know, that's one of the hardest catches when you're standing there completely by yourself, but luckily he caught it and made the touchdown. Again, it's hard to feel that great about it when you can't really coach or plan for the other team just being completely incompetent and not knowing what they're doing at all and letting you score touchdowns. Like, you can't really draw that up. Okay, we're going to go out there and the other team's going to let us score. You know, it's not like the Harlem Globetrotters most of the time. We did see Evan McPherson, shooter, or Money Mac, nail another long 58-yard field goal before halftime. So he continues to look good. Unlike the Browns' Cade York kicker, who was just cut today from the team. If you remember, Cade York was a 4th-round pick of the Browns, number 124 overall. So the fact that they're letting him go before the regular season even starts says a lot about how bad he was performing. And he was hooking kicks like not even close. It was bad. I'm actually disappointed because I was looking forward to him being on the Browns when we play them in week 1. I'm kind of disappointed that they're going to have maybe a competent kicker instead of Cade York. I was really looking forward to that. On the defensive side, we saw Raymond Johnson III show up making a few big plays again. He had a tip pass. He had another half a sack. So he was looking disruptive. Dominique Davis, number 72, he had a big hit on Jake Fromm on the sidelines. They got a penalty flag, but he was making plays. He was in on about 8 combined tackles. I think he may have a chance to make the team as a backup nose tackle, but we'll see because they already have Josh Tupou, DJ Reader. Do we need another big 330-pound nose tackle? We'll see. Josivas had another decent night, 6 targets. That takes him to 26 total targets in the preseason. He had that touchdown. He had another 25-yard catch on a back shoulder fade from Jake Browning. They love the back shoulder fade, especially in the preseason. All they run is like slants, hitches, and back shoulder fades. When you hear about it on TV, the announcers always like, oh, the back shoulder fade, impossible to defend. If that were literally true, teams would run back shoulder fades every single play if it were impossible. It's clearly possible, and it's not really that high a percentage play. And it's good in certain situations. And I guess they run it so much because their quarterback's arms are not strong enough, because they have receivers that can just run by guys. They don't need to just throw it behind them on the back shoulder. They can beat them over the top. I think it's just that the quarterbacks don't have strong enough arms to throw it that far. So instead of that, they throw these like short 25-yard back shoulder fades, which works. But even on that one, Josivas had to really fight through the defender to make a contested catch. It's not nearly as easy as they try to make it sound on TV. It's kind of the same thing when they talk about the Eagles and the kind of the rugby scrum where they push everybody forward to gain that extra 6 inches or a yard when they have 4th and inches. And everybody says, oh, it's impossible to defend the rugby push. If that's true, then why doesn't every single team do that? Jake Browning was 6 for 6 with the touchdown and the back shoulder fade, but kind of a small sample size. I guess Jake Browning has secured the backup quarterback position at this point. Trevor Siemian had the interception, and he kind of forced the ball in. When you're down near the goal line, especially when you have a kicker as good as McPherson, you don't want to give the ball away. The thing that was weird was he pump faked, and then he threw where he pump faked too. Normally, if you're going to pump fake, you're drawing the defense one way, and then you want to throw it a different place, but he threw it where he pump faked, so the guy was still standing there and just caught it. To me, just from the eyeball test, Jacoby Brissett and Jake Fromm, the two quarterbacks for the Commanders, look better than the two primary quarterbacks for the Bengals. Like, I would take Jacoby Brissett or Jake Fromm over Jake Browning or Trevor Siemian in a heartbeat. I was holding out hope for Reed Sinnett because he beat the Bengals in the preseason when he was with the Dolphins a couple years ago. But he came in and he was throwing like 5-10 feet over guys' heads. He had a few receivers that were open and they looked like they would have been easy completions, but he just way overthrew them. He did complete a few passes and he was showing off, decent arm strength, but maybe he was just a little bit overexcited because he only got in the last quarter and a half of the last preseason game. So it's like you're all amped up. If you're Reed, you're like, okay, this is my only opportunity in the whole preseason to show anything. So you're trying to throw it 100 miles an hour, and you just get a little bit too excited. Maybe a little bit more touch would have been better for Reed, but he did get the touchdown. He made that to Shedrick Jackson, so I'll give him that. So mercifully, this brought the preseason to an end. Bengals lose 19-21 to the Commanders at Washington. Bengals preseason record goes to 0-2-1. They got that tie in there, so not a complete 0-3 wipeout, but they were the worst record in the AFC North in the preseason. It doesn't matter, as we all know, but the Steelers were 3-0, and at least we weren't the Rams. The Rams got outscored by 75 points combined in the preseason, so they got beat 41-0 by the Broncos. Sean Payton, it was a little bit of like master teaching the student, not the student teaching the master. It was like, check out this beatdown. Although, the Broncos, they had Albert O. Anyway, enough about the Broncos. After the game, Bengals do their typical horrible audio in the postgame press conference. I went on Twitter. I'll post the link to this postgame press conference on Twitter just in case you want to get your ears blown out. But I don't know why it's so difficult. The Bengals don't have maybe somebody who specializes in audio, but immediately after the game, they go live on Twitter with the press conference, and you can't hear Zach Taylor at all. So I had to turn the volume all the way up, and then it's 50% static, 50% Zach Taylor. It's like, okay, I can kind of hear him. You can't hear the questions at all. You can't hear what anybody's asking from the reporters, but you can only hear Zach Taylor barely. Then 2/3 of the way through the conference, it sounded like somebody plugged in the cable or something. The audio went from a 1 to an 11, and it was completely blown out. So you could hear Zach Taylor way too much, but you still couldn't hear the reporters. And then they dialed it back. It was just a nightmare. I don't know why it's so difficult for them to get the audio. It's the same microphones every single week. What is so difficult about this? Other teams, they have microphones on the reporters so you can actually hear what the question is that's being asked. Because when you hear Zach Taylor, all you hear is yep, oh yeah, I thought he looked pretty good. Yep, oh yeah, well, he needed to get some work out there. Yep. It's you get nothing out of these press conferences that you can barely hear anyway. So I don't understand what is the point of even doing this. If they're going to be bad, just don't even put them out. It looks worse to have a bad press conference. At least they had the camera on a tripod. I swear there was a game last year where it was just a person holding the camera all shaky cam style with no tripod. I was like, what are the Bengals doing? They can't even afford a tripod? Anyway, my overall preseason conclusions for the team. The number one standout, I would say, and of course I'm biased, but Andre Yosivash. Again, it's Yosivash. Yosivash, people. Andre Yosivash, 6th-round pick, was the standout to me because he came in, and it makes sense. He was the security blanket for these backup quarterbacks. 6'3", 205-pound guy who can jump out the gym. Of course you're going to throw it to him. One of the other guys who surprised me was 7th-round pick, number 38, cornerback DJ Ivey. When you see a guy wearing number 38, you're like, oh man, this guy, he's probably going to get cut. 38, like you never see anybody good wearing 38. But he's pretty good. He had a lot of lockdown coverage. He was making plays. Real tight coverage, breaking up a lot of passes. We also saw number 56, Raymond Jones III, making a lot of plays, getting sacks, making tackles, tip balls. He was all over the place. Even out in the flat, he was covering a running back on 3rd down. He made a nice tackle in the flat. I like number 30, Chase Brown, the running back in the 5th round out of Illinois. He ran hard. He made a lot of guys miss, had a few broken tackles, and it looks like he's picking up the pass protection pretty well for a rookie. So whenever I see him in the post-game interviews, Chase Brown, he looks like a smart, eager, intelligent guy. One of the things that's interesting about Chase Brown is he's got an identical twin brother who plays safety for the Eagles. So I was watching one of the Eagles preseason games, and it looked exactly like Chase Brown, but he's got longer hair out of the back of his helmet. So it's like the same face, same body, but he plays defense. He's got longer hair. One of the other draft picks, number 15, Charlie Jones, the wide receiver out of Purdue. We haven't seen too much from Charlie Jones in terms of yards after catch or a lot of... He's only averaging like 4.5 yards per punt return through all the preseason games. So that would be near the bottom of the league. Trent Taylor averaged about 10.5 yards per punt return last year. So more than double what Charlie Jones has been averaging so far this preseason. I think Trent Taylor is going to have a tough time making the roster because they're going to prefer Charlie Jones since he was the draft pick. But I think Trent Taylor has shown more than Charlie Jones this preseason. 1st-round pick, number 99, Myles Murphy. I'm going to give him an incomplete grade so far in the preseason because he missed the 2nd game due to illness. And although he came back in the 3rd game, if you were out in the 2nd game and you know he really wanted to play because he was going home to Atlanta in his hometown, you know he must have really been sick. So even though he was back for the 3rd game, I'm assuming there were still some lingering effects of that illness that he didn't really play amazing. He had like maybe 1 tackle, no kind of pressure on the quarterback. He still gets stuffed in his pass rush moves. But I can see when in his post-game interviews and locker room interviews, he wants to be great, and he really wants to live up to that 1st-round talent that he supposedly had. He believes in himself, and it's just a matter of time. So I'm not going to get down on Myles Murphy at all. He's a rookie. He's still learning his craft, learning how to be a professional. He's a young guy. I think he's only 21 years old, so I'm not going to rush to judgment on Myles Murphy just yet. And I don't think they need him to play immediately. Like I said, he's more of a Sam Hubbard replacement maybe next year or a year or two from now. Also incomplete, I'd say DJ Turner, the rookie number 20 out of Michigan. We know he's got the athletic prowess, but we only saw him for that first preseason game. I don't get to watch the practices to know really how he's playing. We hope he's doing well. So it's going to be interesting to see whether Cheeto can come back and start in week 1. Chidobe Awuzie, number 22, the other cornerback who hurt his ACL last year, or if it's going to be DJ Turner from the start. Jordan Battle, not such a great start for his preseason, but again, he's a rookie too. 3rd rounder out of Alabama. Last week we saw him make the stupid penalty, get taunting when they had him stopped on 3rd and short. This game, he got beat for 2 touchdowns, basically. He had the one where it looked like he was supposed to be in zone coverage and was late to get over there as a safety, or maybe the receiver just found a really big hole in the zone. But then also Jordan Battle completely missed on the tackle. All he had to do was, I say all he had to do, but he needed to get the receiver out of bounds or down any way possible. And instead of that, he didn't break down, didn't chop his feet and slow his momentum enough so that he just came flying in out of control and let the guy sidestep him, did a little matador move, like an Olay move, like Jordan Battle was the bull and the other guy was the matador. Also, he was super late to react down on the goal line when they had a guy going in motion and you saw all the other defenders point, like you pick up, somebody over on the left was supposed to pick up this guy as he goes in motion. So all the other guys shift, but then Jordan Battle is reacting super, super late. He wasn't even close to getting the pass. Easy touchdown. Can't let that happen. Even though Jordan Battle did show some good physicality and coming up in the run game and making some tackles, he might be a liability if he has to play in the regular season. I think if teams see him on the field in the regular season, it's going to be his birthday. They're going to be like, we're going to go after 27 early and often. So that's something to watch for if he has to play. And I thought rookie punter number 10, Brad Robbins out of Michigan, I thought he did enough to win the punting job, and he's got an amazing mustache. So just from a purely entertainment factor standpoint, you need Brad Robbins on the team, no matter what. All right, with the preseason concluded, let's take a look at who I would consider as the roster locks. As I said, I'm not going to go through a 53-man roster prediction because I think that's a complete waste of time, but I'm going to say who has done enough to make the team in my eyes for sure, almost, or who I would be very surprised if the team did not include on the team this year. So I'm going to go through by position. I'm going to say we're going to have 2 for sure, Joe Burrow, number 9, and number 6, Jake Browning. Still no word on Joe Burrow's contract. We're going to have 2 weeks before the first game. So if I were Joe Burrow, I would not step foot on a football field until I have my new contract signed. I'm not putting anything at risk. I don't care if he's under contract and they have his 5th-year option already picked up. I don't care. I'm not playing under anything until I get my new contract. Bottom line. Now, for the running backs, we're going to have 3. Joe Mixon, number 28. Chris Evans, number 25. And the rookie, number 30, Chase Brown. For my wide receivers, I'm going to lock down 6. I'm going to say number 1, Jamar Chase. Number 5, T. Higgins. 83, Tyler Boyd. 15, Charlie Jones. 80, Andre Yossi-Bosch. And 16, Trenton Irwin. I'm going to keep the 3 starters, the 3 amigos, the 2 rookies, and then Trenton Irwin made enough catches last year that I think he stays on the team. I'm locking up 3 tight ends. I'm going to say Irv Smith, number 81, Irv Smith Jr., number 81, 89, Drew Sample, and 84, Mitch Wilcox. I think for whatever reason they like Mitch Wilcox. He's been on the team the last couple of years, so I think he sticks around. On the offensive line, we've got the starting lineup of 75, Orlando Brown Jr. at left tackle, 67, Cordell Volson, left guard, center, number 64, Ted Karras, right guard, Alex Kappa, number 65, and right tackle, Jonah Williams, number 73. As far as backups, I'm going to say Mac Sharping, 74, Jackson Carman, 79, and number 70, Deontay Smith, have shown enough versatility, position versatility, and just being huge human beings to make the team. That's only 8. They're probably going to have more than that, but I'm just not sure who's locked up so far. On the defensive line, we're going to have 94 Sam Hubbard and 91 Trey Hendrickson as our starting ends, and BJ Hill 92 and 98 DJ Reader on the inside. Then I'm going to say they're going to go with 95 Zach Carter, 99 Miles Murphy, 68 Josh Tupou, 56 Raymond Johnson III, 96 Cam Sample, and 58 Joseph Osai. The thing about Joseph Osai is he hurt his ankle in this final preseason game, and we don't know if he's going to be healthy or what the deal is with him. We haven't gotten any updates from Zach Taylor, unfortunately. So if he's healthy, then I assume he will make the team. It's still up in the air what his status is going to be. If hopefully he doesn't have to go on to injured reserve. At the linebackers, we got 55 Logan Wilson and 57 Jermaine Pratt. 59, Akeem Davis-Gaither. 51, Marcus Bailey. 49, Joe Bocci. I think Bocci did enough to make the team. Same with Marcus Bailey. In the defensive backfield, we're going to have 22, Chidobe Awuzie, and 29, Cam Taylor-Britt as the most likely starting cornerbacks. If Cheeto can't start, we'll probably see number 20, DJ Turner, take his starting spot until he can come back. Then we're going to have at safety 33, Nick Scott as the strong safety, and 23, Dax Hill as the free safety. We'll also have 21, Mike Hilton as the slot cornerback, and number 26, Tyson Anderson, 5th round pick last year, who had the 2 interceptions and a pick 6 in the first preseason game. 27, Jordan Battle, safety in the 3rd round out of Alabama. On the special teams, we'll have 48, the long snapper, Cal Adamitis. Place kicker, of course, Evan McPherson, number 2. And at punter, Brad Robbins, number 10. So if we count all those guys, that's 48. I left Trevor Siemian off the list. I'm not sure if he's going to make it as the 3rd string quarterback or if they're going to get somebody else off the waiver wire. There's a bunch of veteran quarterbacks who are going to be out there on the waiver wire they could pick up that would be just as good as Trevor Siemian, if not better. Some of the other people on the current roster I would say might have a chance to make it are number 72, Dominique Davis, who was the 3rd string nose tackle, but he did have a pretty good last couple games. Number 77, Hakeem Adeniji. He was a late round draft pick out of Kansas. He's shown versatility to play guard and tackle both sides of the line. He did even play in the Bengals Super Bowl. So he's got playoff experience. He's got lots of game experience. He's not really that physically gifted. He's not huge. He's not strong. He's not quick. He's just kind of average backup quality. So if you need somebody like that, kind of as a utility player, you can just plug him in at really any position except for center. He is good for that. Also, maybe number 11, wide receiver, punt returner, Trent Taylor. He's kind of on the bubble because Charlie Jones fills almost his exact same role. They're very similar type of players. So you don't really necessarily need to have 2 of the exact same guy on the same team at the same time. So Trent Taylor may be on the way out because of Charlie Jones coming in. Although Charlie Jones really hasn't showed as much as Trent Taylor did, honestly. Trent Taylor was a stud in college. Even though he's undersized, he's got a lot of skill. Number 63, Trey Hill. He's got the size and he went to a big school at Georgia, but he just seems like he is a penalty machine. Every time Trey Hill gets in the game, he gets holding, false start, face mask, something. And his play when he's not getting penalties has not been spectacular either. So I don't know if he makes the team. And then we have La'el Collins. He's been out with an injured left knee. The thing about La'el Collins is his salary this season would be over $10 million. And hasn't been able to practice at all. And La'el was not even good last year. He was a liability last year. So now they're telling me he got hurt at the end of last season. You're basically telling me it's going to be a worse version of a player who was not good last year for $10 million. I just can't really see the reasoning behind keeping him on this team. I think they got to let him go. If they waive LC, they would have a dead cap or dead money hit of about $3.3 million that they wouldn't be able to spend on any other players. But they would save about $6.5 million, which they could spend on other players, extend other players, sign other free agents who are more expensive, anything, get something. But I don't see the value in keeping La'el Collins just on the off chance that he might suddenly come back, have a miraculous recovery, and be better than he was 2 years ago. I just don't see how that's going to work. So I like LC as a person, but as somebody on the Bengals roster, I just don't see how he can fit from a salary and from a lineup perspective. That's just my guess. I had 48 people who I locked, who I would be surprised if the Bengals go. 5 other positions are up for grabs, and there's a bunch of people who are going to be available on the waiver wire. So hopefully the Bengals can pick up some players who will be able to contribute in meaningful snaps throughout the season and not just settle for some of the guys that they already have because it's most convenient. I really hope they scour the other teams' rosters to find anybody. And they usually do a good job of finding a few people. I remember last year they got Devin Asiasi when they had almost no tight ends. So they usually fill in some depth with some players. We'll have to keep an eye on that going forward. Going back to one of our stories from last week when Joe Mixon was found not guilty of misdemeanor aggravated menacing, where the judge said that the district attorney didn't present enough evidence to prove that Joe Mixon was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. There was nothing on video, no witnesses were called, basically just a hearsay, Joe Mixon's word against the accuser. The accuser was not named, stayed completely anonymous throughout this, but Joe Mixon's reputation was damaged because his name was associated with criminal charges and having a warrant out for his arrest and all this kind of stuff. So even though he was found not guilty, it's still damaging reputationally and financially because sponsors, people aren't going to want Joe Mixon to endorse their products if, Joe Mixon's involved in legal issues, legal drama. After the verdict came out that Joe Mixon was not guilty, Joe Mixon, who had not been speaking with the media at all in the preseason, announced that he would do a media interview, but he was not going to answer any questions or speak to 4 beat reporters specifically. And to me, that's Joe Mixon's prerogative. Our coach in college always used to tell us as players before any time we did an interview, the media is not your friend. The media is just there to drum up controversy, to get clicks, to anytime you say anything semi-controversial or critical of a teammate, a coach, a other player, opponent, anything, the media is going to try to blow it out of proportion, make it into a huge story, a huge controversy, make you look like a fool, spin your words, twist your words against you. So whatever you say, maybe that's not what you meant, but they're going to put it out of context to whatever is going to make people click on their story, get views. So from that perspective, understanding that the media is not your friend, I don't have any problem with Joe Mixon saying, as a blanket statement, I'm not going to talk to any media. I think if he had come out and say, I'm not going to talk to any media at all, I would have been okay with that. But by singling out individual reporters and just kind of vaguely saying, I'm not going to talk to these individuals because they were disrespectful and they know why. It's a little bit strange. I would have preferred Joe Mixon to say, I'm not going to talk to these individuals and then bring the receipts. Point out, this is exactly what you wrote, when you wrote it, and here's why I feel you were disrespecting me, and that's exactly why I'm not going to talk to you. I would be fine with that. But if you're going to call out individuals, you need to have some evidence, I think. And I think one of the things that would back that up was the initial article from ESPN. Let me read it to you. So here's the story that came out this year, February 2nd, 2023, from Ben Baby at ESPN, who's the ESPN reporter for the Bengals. It says, a warrant has been issued for the arrest of Cincinnati Bengals running back Joe Mixon on a complaint of misdemeanor aggravated menacing, according to court records. The complaint was filed Thursday in Hamilton County Court. Bengals said they are aware of the charges against Mixon. Quote, the club is investigating the situation and will not comment further at this time, a team spokesman said in a statement. So there you have, this is me talking, there you have the club making a reasonable, responsible statement of, we're not going to have any comment on an investigation that's ongoing. Then, back in the article, according to the warrant, Mixon allegedly pointed a gun at an individual January 21st and said the person should be popped in the face. The warrant states the incident occurred on the intersection of Walnut and 3rd, downtown Cincinnati, one day before the Bengals defeated the Buffalo Bills in the AFC playoffs. In a statement issued to ESPN, Mixon's agent said he expects Hamilton County officials to drop the charges the next morning, stating that it was a rush to judgment. So we've got the team saying no comment, Mixon's agent saying rush to judgment. The agent says, "I really feel that police have an obligation before they file charges because of the damage that can be done to a person's reputation to do their work," Schaefer said. So again, the agent is calling for people to be calm, don't rush to judgment and damage someone's reputation. I think he should have said police and reporters need to do their due diligence before reporting on things. Anyway, the very next sentence after this. In 2014, Mixon was charged with misdemeanor assault for punching a woman. At the time, Mixon was a running back at the University of Oklahoma. He alleged he was called a racial slur, which prompted him to use an anti-gay slur before the assault occurred. Mixon entered a plea deal and was given a year of probation and suspended for 1 season. Mixon was drafted by the Bengals in the second round of the 2017 NFL Draft. He signed a 4-year extension in 2020 worth $48 million and was named to the Pro Bowl in 2020. Now, when I read that, given that Joe Mixon was not arrested, not charged with any crime, what does something from 8 years ago when Joe Mixon was a freshman or sophomore in college have to do with some alleged incident that occurred in Cincinnati? And why would Ben Baby or his editor decide that they need to point that out in this story? Because in every other story, they don't feel a need to mention that. So I'm failing to see how these two incidents are related at all, especially in hindsight, considering the fact that Joe Mixon was eventually found not guilty of this crime that he was accused of. So why did they feel like that extra context was needed? In my mind, even though Joe Mixon won in the criminal court, he lost the court of public opinion because of this article and articles like it that are painting him out to be a criminal, a bad guy, making the argument that, oh, well, Joe Mixon has been in trouble with the law before. We know Joe Mixon is a bad guy because of something that happened 8 years ago when he wasn't even 20 years old. So basically still a young child. I mean, there's no excusing what Joe Mixon did when he was at Oklahoma. Everybody knows that, including Joe Mixon. That's why I think Joe Mixon has learned from his lessons because of the consequences that he had to face. Joe Mixon, more than anybody, would know what can happen if he makes the wrong decision. So I don't understand what this had to do with anything, why they added this to the story, why they're bringing this up. And again, this is all about money. So from Joe Mixon's perspective, this type of stuff is causing him headaches where he has to deal with this in court. He's got to pay lawyers to deal with this. And now he's going to have to take a pay cut because his name is in the media for negative stories. If I'm Joe Mixon, I'm thinking ESPN and Ben Baby and all these kind of reporters are costing me money. Basically, writing these kind of negative stories about me, bringing up negative things from my past is costing me money. So why should I give you anything? Why should I talk to you? Why should I give you anything to write stories about? I'm not going to answer any of your questions. I'm not going to let you make any money off of me if you're just going to write negative things and ruin my reputation. So I totally have Joe Mixon's back on this. I just wish he would bring the receipts and say, yeah, I am not talking to you because you did me wrong in the media and made me look like a guilty guy even though I was not guilty. So forget you. And if you look at a star player like Joe Burrow doesn't ever talk to any of these beat writer reporters because they're nothing to him. Why would Joe Burrow waste his time talking to some guy who works at The Athletic or the Cincinnati Enquirer or any of these other smaller publications? Joe Burrow is an international superstar. He doesn't need promotions from these media, newspapers and websites and whatever. Like, Joe Burrow doesn't care about that. All they're going to do is try to get famous off of him and promote their own brand off of the Joe Burrow brand. Joe Burrow doesn't need anybody promoting themselves off of the Joe Burrow brand. Joe Burrow makes his own brand. And they write about Joe Burrow for free, and he doesn't give them anything. That's what I love about Joe Burrow. They were asking him about, how does he build his brand? He's like, I let you guys do it for me. Checkmate. Anyway, that's my rant about Joe Mixon and the media. Remember, kids, media is not your friend. So that's it for the preseason. Join me on the next episode when we're going to know the complete final 53 roster and we'll get ready for week 1. But until then, hooday and stay hungry for more Bengal Bites.
Davis goes in motion, and he takes the handoff around the end, and then scoots outside. Makes a great cut. Leaps across the 40, at the 50-yard line. He's to the 40, at the 20. Derek Davis, all the way. Touchdown, Princeton.